Hello, beautiful people. It's Quentin from the Hunters of Light, and some of you may have noticed it's a little bit warmer in Johannesburg at the moment. I think the rest of the country is kind of feeling the same way. But I saw a couple of pictures on Facebook recently from Emil von Maltitz, and he was in the Berg, knee deep in the snow. And I thought, well, it's perfect. September is Elements Month, so we're shooting everything related to elements. And I thought, fantastic, we're going to get Emil on and hear a couple of stories about the Berg, what it was like, the safety things that you need to go through, et cetera, et cetera. I have to say, the pictures that I've seen are incredible. I'm looking forward to hearing the back story to all of this. So, yeah, he's coming up soon. For those of you who are watching this for the first time, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Remember to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. If you are a subscriber already, fantastic, rock star, woohoo, love you. That's the way that the channel grows, people subscribe, share it, like the content. All we really want to do is educate, motivate, and inspire people when it comes to photography. So yeah, enough talking, let's go. Cue the intro. Cue the intro. Cue the intro. Woo. All right, everyone. So here we are with Emil von Maltitz, and we're going to be talking about landscape photography, predominantly the pictures that he's taken at the Berg during this last snowfall. Certainly 3 years ago, I bought a Land Rover. I think it might have been the midlife crisis, but my intention was to go everywhere off-road and just do cool stuff. But one of the main things within that was to go snow chasing in winter because, why not? That's what you do. So, Emil, you were saying that you basically were waiting 10 years to get this shot or these shots.
Something like that. I started wanting to chase snow. Well, the first time I actually experienced snow in the Drakensberg was 2001. So we're talking 20 years ago. And it was the bizarrest time of the year as well. It literally snowed on New Year's Day. Wow. And I happened to be there for New Year's Eve. And ever since then, I've been wanting to do this. And a couple of years ago, started seriously looking at the weather and chasing the snow. And the closest I've gotten to it really was getting into really, really cold conditions, but dry, and the weather forecast bombing out and not actually giving us any snow. So it's quite a thing to get everything to line up, from the work you're doing to the family commitments to the time that you can actually get away and still line up with a really good weather front. And this last one happened to be it.
Fantastic. I mean, we felt it up here. It wasn't something we were expecting or looking for, but we certainly felt it up here. So I'm sure it must have been freezing over there. And obviously, I've seen some of the behind the scenes pictures, and so I'm hoping those are going to be included because those look really, really cool.
There's a few of them, yes.
So Emil, we kind of had a brief chat earlier about what it is that you do other than photographing snow and that sort of thing. And I think as you quite correctly put, we're probably the prostitutes of photography type of thing, where we pretty much shoot anything. We shoot anything as long as it moves, and if it doesn't move, then then we'll wait.
Correct, and particularly if somebody is actually prepared to pay for it. So yes, you end up photographing anything from nuts and bolts to skyscrapers.
Yeah, absolutely, and all the time loving it. I mean, I think that it's very seldom that photographers in South Africa can really focus on a single genre. There's obviously quite a few that do it, but I think for the most part, the rest of us shoot whatever we can, whenever we can. Although for me, I really enjoy the variety of it. Imagine shooting nudes all day, every day for months at a time. I certainly couldn't deal with that.
No, I agree with you. There's a couple of people who are sort of the rock stars of a genre, I suppose, and they do very well. But I love the fact that every single day is different. One day I might be inside a mill photographing something in searing heat. The next day I'll be in a helicopter photographing the harbor, and the day after that I'll be in a studio trying to photograph food. So it's the variation is fantastic. And of course, every now and again, I also get to go to the top of a mountain.
Yeah, I assume that sometimes you wish that you could fly up there in one of those helicopters, because you clearly got
That
to
would
be,
be nice.
you got to be fairly fit to be able to do that and take up a whole lot of gear as well.
So yeah, you do need to be relatively fit. We have this problem every year where people, and it's partly people like myself who are to blame, because we've shown these photographs on Instagram and on social media, and people then think, "Hey, great, that's wonderful. I want to go and do this myself," and then they get stuck on top of a mountain in bad weather and have to be rescued. So there is some, you do need to be aware that a certain level of fitness is required, particularly if you're wanting to chase weather events like a snowstorm. Another fantastic time of the year is to go to the Drakensberg is summer, but summer it rains a lot, and you've got to worry about things like flash floods, lightning storms, all sorts of weather phenomenon that if you're not equipped for it can quite literally kill you. So you do need to be aware of that before you start heading out into the mountains to go and take photographs. I'm not trying to be melodramatic. The Drakensberg is a real mountain, which the Europeans who visit tend to forget.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you do offer workshops and things like that. Have you considered doing a Berg boot camp where you basically go through the process of, this is what you need. If you don't have it, don't go?
It's a nice idea, actually. What we usually do is the lower level stuff through lodges where it's safe. So you get people to get to grips with landscape photography. But every now and again, we do have the Heiberg workshops where we have porters sometimes as well. But for something like the snow chasing, I don't know if I would take a guest photographer that I've never hiked with before, because, like I say, things can go wrong. As it was on this trip, two of the other photographers I was with, their tent broke under the snow. And if you've got a paying guest on something like that, they might not be that happy.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like a refund, please. My tent collapsed last night under 3 foot of snow. Okay, that could be problematic. Okay, so a technical question. What is your favorite lens? And I know you shoot a lot of stuff, but what is your favorite lens?
Crikey. Okay, my favorite focal length is probably 24 millimeters.
Right.
I have a 18 millimeter lens, which I can't choose, actually, to be honest. I've got several lenses that I love. 70 to 200 f4, chosen because it's lighter than the 2.8 for carrying.
Yeah.
It's beautifully sharp. I use it for everything from product photography through to portraits, through to compressed vistas of the Drakensberg. I've got an 18 millimeter Milvis, which continually amazes me simply because it's sharp from edge to edge, which I love. And I recently wrote an article about a Voigtlander 40 millimeter, which it's not the perfect lens, but it's got so much character in it that every time I take it out for like a street photography scene or something, I fall in love with the photographs. So it's hard to say I have a favorite lens, because it also depends on the view that you're trying to create. So yeah, I have several lenses I like.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You know, you for an event and wedding photographer, you pretty much got the two workhorses, the 70 to 200 and the 24 to 70. But you know, when it comes to a landscape, you know, you need to have much wider. You know, if you want to get like a full vista, unless of course you're doing panoramas. But it is difficult. You don't always have a favorite lens, but there's definitely a couple of them, and you've mentioned them now. So that's pretty cool. And then one other question before we get into your work, because I mean, obviously that's the whole focus of this. What is your biggest wish for your photography, just across the board?
It's a tough one. I've said before, I kind of think that if I can create an image that causes somebody to change the way they think, or look at something in a completely new way and have an almost epiphany moment, to me, that would be a successful photograph. I would like my images to be known more than I am known in a way. I actually would prefer some form of anonymity, but for my images to make a difference. It sounds, it doesn't sound quite so right when you put it that way, I suppose. But I just, yeah, you want your images to kind of live on and to make a difference. Sorry, maybe I should rephrase that.
No. That's very cool. That's very cool. I mean, I appreciate the sentiment of that, and I think it's a worthwhile goal. Where it's not about you, it's about the images, and even if they can make a difference in people's lives, so much the better. So yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's very cool. Okay, so now.
I did some photographs for an NGO a while back, and it was photographs of students and their parents and so on. And afterwards, somebody came to me and said these, because I did it pro bono, and the organization I was working for, ProTech, they came to me and they said, your images have made a difference because we've actually been able to touch a nerve with our donors, which we weren't able to do before this. That to me was reward enough for that particular work that I did. Obviously, I'd like to be paid more often, but that was it felt good. It really did feel good, that one.
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, it in cases where you're taking pictures of people that have never had a photograph taken of them before. I always try and, when I'm in those sort of situations, I always try and have a contact that I can get prints made and get the prints back, because they're so fascinated by seeing what's on the back of the LCD screen. But to have a print of yourself or your family, I think is really cool. And it's those sorts of things I think that sometimes make all the blood, sweat, and tears worth it. When when it does feel like there's something more to it than just likes on Facebook and Instagram, I suppose.
Well, I actually carry Instax Fujifilm camera when I go overseas, and when we do the Madagascar workshop, for instance. I had a guy who invited us into his home just because he saw us on the street one day and asked us to take photographs of him and his wife. And I took the Instax in with me. She burst into tears when I gave them the photograph, and he explained through an interpreter it was the first photograph she'd ever been given. And it was of the couple. So yeah, I think it was only then that it actually hit me how important just creating that connection and sharing your photographs with the people you photograph, how important that is.
Absolutely. And it, like I say, there's the commercial side of it, but then there's also the fact that picture will be cherished for many years to come.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, hopefully. Yes, let's go with
hopefully. Yes.
All right, so yeah, let's jump into to seeing the images.
Right, I'm just starting with this photograph, which was one of the first ones on day 2 of this particular sort of snow chase, and this was when I really started getting excited. It's a 3-image panoramic stitch. It's taken from the top of the Tugela Falls, which is now recognized as the world's highest waterfall. Thank goodness, it's taken them long enough to get that right. It's actually really, really simple, the photographs themselves. There's so much white that I'm a heavy filter user, and I didn't actually use filters at all, except for one occasion when I popped a polarizer on. The actual scene is almost monochromatic, so shooting in the snow was actually relatively easy from that perspective. It's not easy from the perspective of constantly taking snow off the front of your lens, or the condensation issues that you get pulling the camera in and out of your bag, actually. So this was just a panoramic. But what I did want to sort of point out, and we chatted beforehand about this, is a lot of people don't realize what it takes to get up onto the mountain in these kind of weather conditions. And this is just a very basic set of equipment that you've got to carry with you if you're going to go overnight hiking in the Drakensberg. And this doesn't actually portray all of the winter equipment that I had with me on this particular trip. It's a basic set of kit that I actually photographed just after a snow chase last year that was unsuccessful. And funnily enough, on that snow chase, which I've got some photographs of that. So, for instance, this was photographed going up Rockeries last year in an attempt to find snow, and you can see a snowstorm coming in as I'm ascending the pass. But because there was no snow, we actually ended up having temperatures of minus 17 degrees centigrade
Sure.
while we were on top. It was manic, absolutely insane. And of course, we never had any snow. What we did end up with was like this. So this would have been epic with snow, but of course there wasn't any. So I was
Yeah.
kind of looking forward to this year's attempt at trying to find some of that. Um, so yeah, this is what it looks like just before you actually have the proper dump, and this is walking up the path towards the chain ladder in the Drakensberg or the amphitheater itself. I'm sure many of your viewers have actually been to this part of the world because it's considered the sort of the access point for beginners to actually get to the top of the Drakensberg. It's the simplest way to get there.
Right. The last time that
Again,
I was up at the top there, anywhere close to that was it was a shoot that I did with Standard Bank, was for Standard Bank with Michael Lewis and his
cool.
assistant Janyan at the time. That was many years ago, but I'd definitely love to get back up there.
Oh no, it's every time I go up the top of the escarpment or the top of the berg, the high berg. I don't know. It's like everything else that has been weighing down on you just gets lost. It's absolutely the simplicity of just worrying about where you're going to be the next night, when are you going to eat, how are you going to stay warm, what photographs you're going to take. It all the other crap disappears.
Yeah.
So, which is one of the reasons why I love it, I think. Oh, no, the world whispers to you when you're up there. It's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Anyway, but this is just showing some of the clouds as they sort of mount up against the side of the mountains. This is looking north towards Clarence, in fact. Whereas it's on the other side of the amphitheater itself, and then you climb the chain ladder, which I've got a photograph of here showing that. You climb the chain ladder, and then you get to look out on the other side, and that's the classic view that everyone is familiar with. Good news as well, the chain ladder is now repaired. It got repaired 2 weekends ago, I think. Up until, for the last 2 years, one of the shackles had actually fallen away. So it was extremely, well, if you had a suicidal death wish, then you climb on the one
that
ladder.
was the thing to do
now
then.
it's, yeah, apparently. But now it's good, and it's safe to use both ladders once more. So yeah, this is the sort of the view as you look down from the top of the escarpment that most people are familiar with. So this is looking into the actual Tugela Valley itself, and you can't see it right now because it's obscured by the low-level clouds. But the Tugela River is flowing through that valley. So if you stay somewhere like Royal Natal and you go to Tendile and you do the gorge walk, that's where you'll end up, looking up towards the escarpment wall itself, basically.
I love the sort of the softness and the layers with the clouds and the snow and the ground. I really enjoyed this. Very, very cool.
Well, when I saw this, I got quite excited because you've got this lovely composition where everything is sort of moving in a circular movement, always towards the center where you have that bright area of cloud, but then it's nicely framed by these spurs and valleys around it. Yeah. And just seeing the dotted snow was, to me, that was a life dream, to be able to go up into the Drakensberg and see that kind of snow, fresh snow as well. I mean, I've been to the Berg before with snow, particularly to Vitsisuk. And I mean, one year on a workshop, we actually got snowed in where we couldn't leave Vitsisuk resort. But it's always been a dream to be able to stand on top of the escarpment and look down on the snowfall and actually be right there where where you're in the thick of it, basically. And it was extraordinary. Absolutely amazing.
I think it's lovely. I really, really love this shot.
Oh, thank you. All right. Well, this image of the escarpment wall has actually gotten quite a lot of comments on social media, and I was quite surprised. But it's, again, very, very simple to photograph up there. And I think one of the reasons why the images are compelling is simply because it's a view that South Africans, or as South Africans, we're not particularly used to. I mean, the Europeans and the Americans, they're used to big dumps of snow, whereas I guess we're not. So, which is maybe why we have such this almost fetishized attempt to chase snow anytime we know that there's going to be a cold snap.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like everyone wants to just get their hands in the snow, build a snowman, throw snowballs.
Yeah, that's right. I was up there on this occasion with two other photographers. One of them is actually an Instagram influencer or social, something like that. I'd never met them before, but we were sort of put together by another fellow photographer who decided not to come at the last minute. But so the three of us went up there, and when we came down, she actually commented, because it was like this traffic jam of people heading up the road to the Sentinel car park. There were literally hundreds and hundreds of people in the fields and the sort of the lower slopes, all just trying to catch a glimpse of the Drakensberg. And she was quite put out. She's like, no, we've put the effort in. This is our mountain. Go away.
Oh, I love it. So I love it.
It was a bit of a culture shock to see so many people in the mountains, whereas you're usually the only people around. So, but just to give the context of for those who haven't been there before, I mean, that's what the edge of the escarpment looks like. You stand right on that rock wall, and there are sections there that if you were to lean out, it's a 600-700 meter drop before the next sort of ledge. It's a long way down. I know that there are some sections of the berg where the mountain wall is supposed to be almost 900 meters sheer.
Wow.
So I think like Black and Tan Wall, for instance, which is a little bit to the south of this. So it's pretty extreme when you do get there. And then you've got this great wind blowing from behind you and snow in your face and stuff. It feels very real.
No, exactly. And I mean, it's one thing to see like the previous shot, it looks dramatic and all of that, but it's you don't really have a context of scale. When you put people in it, all of a sudden, you realize that no, these are some serious cliff faces.
And I mean, the only reason I don't have more of the cliff faces, we were basically sitting in a cloud at that point. So your visibility is very, very low. I mean, you can just make out the other side of where the Tugela Falls actually falls on the other side of that. And that's about 30 meters away, 40 meters away. And then it was just cloud, just solid cloud. And I mean, we were lucky, obviously, when you got a break in the clouds, you had these magnificent views. So over here, you can actually, the snowy sort of dip in the middle of the image is the Tugela River. It's completely frozen over, a big sort of pile of snow on top of it. So obviously the falls were not actually flowing, but that was kind of the view that you got, where you had this heavy overcast conditions above you, and then clouds constantly just coming up and obscuring your vision completely. So we were up there for 3 days, basically, 2 nights, 3 days. And for most of the time, we didn't see anything except a big white wall of cloud.
Wow.
The photographs that we did get were those moments in between where we dashed out through the snow to try and get some of the images. For the most part, this was the best kind of view we got. So although I got a really decent amount of images, when you look at the timestamps, all of them were shot in about 2 hours over the entire 3 days.
Yeah.
Because it was just white out the rest of the time.
Well, I suppose that's a trade-off, hey? You want snow, but you also want it with a bit of sunlight, nice blue skies. Let's order this exactly how we want it, but unfortunately, it's not going to happen.
No, it doesn't happen at all. And I mean, the amount of snow on the third day, which was the Sunday of that weekend, it was about 4 or 5 in the morning, and you could still hear the snow coming down. And I've got some photos in a moment showing sort of behind the scenes stuff, where I was just thinking, God, this has got to stop. And when we woke up in the morning on Sunday, it was complete whiteout again. The tent that the other 2 photographers were in had broken under the weight of the snow. My tent, I had to dig a hole to get out of the tent.
Wow.
And we actually didn't, we thought we'd be stuck there for another day. We didn't realize that, well, once the sun comes out, I mean, the snow melts so fast. By the time we came down Sentinel, down to the Sentinel car park, there was like this river underfoot simply from the snow melt. So
Wow.
I would have liked to stay longer, but other work waited, that kind of thing. So, you know, but again, I mean, you can see the view, the kind of whiteout view that you would get all the time. It was frustrating from a certain point of view, but still beautiful because you always you look at these sort of details and they're monochromatic, which was amazing. There's always a slight blue tinge to everything because it was obviously you're in a cloud and the snow is reflecting the cloud essentially. So
Right.
the color cast was very cold as well. I mean, this is just to give you this is a selfie shot that I took of myself in the snowfield, just so you get an idea of the kind of visibility. And if you're not careful, you could lose your tent. And I mean, some of the horror stories from that part of the world, I think back in the 70s, there was a chap who walked up behind friends of his, and there's a mountain hut on the top, which used to be the default place to stay in bad weather. And he died 3 or 4 meters from the hut because he
Wow.
couldn't find it in a whiteout. His mates found him the next day, dead, and he was literally 3 or 4 meters from the edge of the hut, but he couldn't see it.
Sure.
So yeah, the berg can be dangerous, and this is what I was trying to allude to earlier on. Photographs that we've taken that show this amazing location, and it is amazing. I can't wait to go back actually, but you've got to be prepared and aware that the weather there it's severe and it can come out very, very suddenly. This is the morning on the Sunday, and you can actually see there's the snow all around us. The red tent in the back, that little pole sticking out, is because the weight of the snow just tore the pole through the tent, and everything collapsed on the other 2 photographers, Pat and Iana, who were with me. I was inside this little yellow tent, and you can see where I've scooped snow away to be able to actually get out of the tent itself. It's still snowing, so this was taken just before we went over to the escarpment, in the hopes that we'd get a break, and we did. And the most amazing break. I'll show you that photograph last, I think. Yeah, so just if people want to do this, they just need to be aware that you need the right equipment. You should have some experience of hiking in the Drakensberg and staying overnight before you attempt anything like chasing snow in the high berg. If you are prepared and you've got the right equipment, it can be an extraordinary experience. But if you are not prepared and you don't have the right clothing, the right food, the right tent and boots and all that kind of stuff, it can quite literally scar you, if not kill you. So yeah, again, not to be overly melodramatic. It's just I don't want people making that kind of mistake. So this is just as we arrived, and you can quickly set up a time lapse. We got there quite late, unfortunately, so you can see the light disappearing as we set up our tents. And this is just on the Friday evening. You can see the snow it's pretty low at the moment. We'd only had like a couple of centimeters of snow by that stage. By the time we left, when we were walking through the snow, it's literally up to your knees kind of thing.
Sure.
Yeah, so this was, and I mean, this is the Saturday night, waiting just before heading into the tents to try and stay warm and get a good night's sleep. And the next morning, we went from this to that. So, which is quite extreme, I think. And I'm sure that there are other sort of, there are Arctic explorers who would look at that and go, "This is easy." But for us South Africans, where a foot of snow is a miracle, this is quite something, I think.
So I've got a question about batteries. I mean, I know that
Yes.
Batteries are not the best when it comes to cold weather, etc. So, and you were there for multiple days. So, did you take like 7 billion batteries, or did you? I mean, how would you have been able to charge them?
So I had 5 batteries with me. I'm shooting on a Nikon D850 up there. So they're using the Nikon EL15 batteries, and they're pretty good with juice. But I still, on 3 days, and remember I said I only really shot for effectively 2 to 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Over those 3 days, I went through 4 of those batteries. And that last battery, I was sticking it in my underpants to keep warm. So, I mean, it wasn't as cold as what I experienced last year when I went up and we didn't have snow. We probably got down actually to a relatively warm -5 at night. And during the day, we were probably hovering above or just below 0 most of the time. So the weather actually wasn't that bad. I have experienced worse cold in the Berg before, but regardless of that, your batteries they get chowed. So I do tend to travel with a big 20,000 milliamp power bank, which I can charge up my phone with as well. And I've got one of those little RAV power chargers. So in the worst case, I can still try and charge up my batteries from the power bank as well. But thankfully, I didn't need that. But I have to say, I was nuts, though. I even took a drone with 4 batteries. I didn't get much opportunities. Once or twice, not a lot. The photograph of Pat coming up the ladder was with the drone, for instance.
Okay.
But I didn't fly it much because the weather was too bad. The snow, I'm sure the drone could do it, but I've had one fly away already, and I didn't really feel like another one. So I didn't fly it when I felt the conditions were not great. So yeah, so it tended to only be out in perfect conditions. So I only ever used 2 batteries. So yeah, the drone was just extra weight basically. Although I got some nice photographs from it. This is just showing again some more of those aspects of that cold snow and early morning kind of stuff. These are pretty much straight out of camera as well. So you can see pretty thick snow towards the edges, looking down through the escarpment. The image on the left, you can actually see the snow still driving. There's a little bit of detail. I'm just going to pop my mouse in over here. Just a little bit of detail over here where you can see the snow coming out against the camera. And that was something I had to deal with a lot, was snow falling on the camera. So you're constantly wiping the front of your lens. And of course, that's getting wet, which makes it harder and harder to get clear photographs. And then you change lenses and it introduces condensation. So now you've got condensation on the inside of your lens. Those temperature changes between the tent, your bag and outside, it's a constant battle that you're fighting, trying to keep your lenses moisture free on the outside, as well as condensation free on the inside. And I was more successful this time around than I have been in the past, but I still struggled. I'm still looking for the right answers and how to stop that from happening.
Yeah, if anyone's watching this that's been through that, just pop your hints and tips and suggestions in the comments below. We'd all appreciate that.
Yeah, I'd love to know. And I mean, I shoot in Iceland. Well, when COVID doesn't stop me from traveling there with guests, I shoot in Iceland sometimes, and there we have the same problems. But you have the advantage of going back to a nice warm lodge afterwards and gently drying your lens out by a heater or a radiator or something. When you're up in the Drakensberg and there's snow up to your knees, it's not that easy to keep things dry and warm. But you are rewarded with scenes like this, which is
that's amazing.
So this is actually looking down. The Sentinel itself is completely obscured by cloud. This is Beacon Buttress coming up towards the left, and in the distance is Vitsisuk. And what was really cool was while I was shooting this scene, and I'm pretty sure it's within minutes, there's photographs by the Joburg-based photographer Mark Dumbleton photographing up towards us.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of cool seeing his photographs after the event and seeing mine and realizing that, I mean, they were shot literally at the same time up and down the mountain, it's kind of cool, I must say.
Absolutely. I love the framing of the mountains with by the snow in the foreground. I think it's so cool.
Thank you. Yeah. So I specifically looked for that when I was trudging through the snow, and I saw this little gully that shoots down into the lower sort of valleys and so on. And I realized that it makes a really nice composition, creating this. It's not quite the golden mean, but you can see there is that sort of circular movement happening inside the scene, which I really liked. And the other things like these spires and this coming out, it points you towards where the light is. So your eye makes this natural progression into this area down in the bottom right-hand side. So I do try think really critically about composition when I am busy shooting. And I'm always trying to think more along the lines of what am I trying to convey in the image, rather than just say, oh, it's a pretty picture. Worst possible reason to take a photograph, in my opinion. You actually want people to read it almost like a story. And if I don't succeed, I hope I've succeeded a little bit time to time, but that tends to be the goal, is when I look at a scene, I go, right, how am I going to convey what I am feeling in the photograph so that somebody else feels that they are able to understand what I saw, what I felt, and are also getting something of a story out of it. And it doesn't have to be some grand truth. It can literally just be the Drakensberg in snow, but feeling that sense of awe that you're surrounded by these incredible spires of mountains along with this beautiful snow, and just having that sense of being there as well. That's kind of what I try to go for. Can't say I'm always successful, but hopefully for some people I might be.
Well, I think this one, this one as well.
Go back to this one.
No, yeah. I'm just saying that I think this one and the next one are pretty successful in that.
I hope so. I'll jump through to this one again. This is another panoramic shot. Again, it's just showing that I love looking through to where you had that incredible color contrast with the oranges in the background. So I like panoramics, as has probably become evident. But it was just that contrast and the difference between that blinding white snow in the foreground. Well, it wasn't so much blinding because we were still had huge overcast conditions, but the contrast between that white monochromatic icy snow and this warm orange in the valleys below, which were sort of almost emblematic of a spring to come in a way, which I quite liked. So yeah, and again over here trying to find some kind of feature in the foreground, which when there's so much snow is quite difficult to create that relationship between the foreground and your background, because it's just this big white mass of snow. So over here I saw this big boulder and I thought, this is great because it situates you in the foreground. It gives you a little bit of context and a little bit of sort of size as well. Yeah, a little bit, which is probably more evident in these images here. So the image on the right, you've actually got the frozen grass tufts as they sort of cascade over the edge of the mountain, and then Eastern Buttress and Devil's Tooth in the background. And again, it's that just creating that sense of story or three-dimensionality as well, by having a recognizable foreground and then also having a background that you can almost situate it contextually in terms of its size, knowing that this is a massive mountain and there's this grass in the foreground. So you get some kind of impression of scale happening there.
Yeah, I love the depth of the one on the right, with as you say, the grass in the front, and then you've got the mountains, and then the mountains even further back, and you can see a little bit of cloud and a little bit of what's happening in the background on the left there. I really love it. Lots of nice layers in there.
Yeah, thanks. Layers, I think, are important when you're shooting landscape photography. So the one on the left obviously doesn't have as many layers, but that's now you're compressing distance and you're trying to create that almost abstract sense of scale. But if you're shooting grand vistas, layering depth is extremely important. I go back again and again to she's quite an influential writer on photography, Angela Faris-Belt, where she talks about the three-dimensionality of a photograph being important because it's a two-dimensional medium. Whether you're looking at it on a computer screen or you're looking at it on a book, in a book or a print, it's still two-dimensional, but we are three-dimensional beings. So you have to put these markers inside your image so that the viewer almost expects the image to jump out as a three-dimensional picture. So just photographing a mountain so it's flat never works. But photographing, well, I say that now, but one of my favorite photographs doesn't have a foreground, and you'll see it later. But the creating that sense where it's almost like it's got a zip in the middle of the photograph and you can just open it up and step into the scene. it's a major motivation for me. And that's why I'm always looking for these depth markers where you've got this foreground, middle ground, and background.
Yeah, and I really enjoy the one on the right. It's really, really cool.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, which I suppose this is now. So we're talking about that compression, and you still have the sense of a foreground, middle ground, background, but the difference is it's further away, and it's a more abstract view of the mountains as a result. This is now obviously the weather is starting to clear up slightly. We're now starting to think, okay, cool, we can actually get off the mountain. There's a part of me that wishes I hadn't left, and that I spent another day up there. But you know what it's like. The work awaits. The world's money earning capacities never end. It's a grind in a way, but still, I love it. I love the fact that I can do it with a camera. So I'm fortunate. I'm not complaining.
Absolutely.
But yeah, this is just the majesty of the mountains here was just extraordinary. And one of the things I loved about the fact that we have all the snow now is, again, going back to that sort of almost abstract monochromatic view, which you don't usually get. Usually there's splashes of yellow and orange and green going on in the mountains. And this time around, it was whites and blacks, basically. Now, the orange that comes through in the mountain itself is all the more distinctive because everything else is this cold kind of black and white. But then you've got this lovely orange basalt rock coming through in the bottom right. And I really liked that. The fact that you've got the blues and the oranges as well.
Yeah, because I mean, you almost get the feeling of it being a monochromatic image, except for the fact that you've got the warmer tones in the foreground and the bluer tones in the background.
Yeah.
So another layer, I suppose.
Essentially, yes. So you're playing with different juxtapositions, I think is the right word. So you've got the oranges and the blues, you've got the black and the white, you've got the different layers happening as well. You've got the clouds coming up through the rock face and the clouds at the back. And there's even some god beams or crepuscular rays happening over here, which is quite cool. This is relatively unedited, this image as well. So I could probably do more to it if I want to. Although I'm kind of happy with it the way it came out as it is, I think. But yeah, one of the few occasions I did take the drone up, and this is, again, the sun was now out. We're starting to think about leaving again. And this is just a 6-image panorama from where you can see the full sort of basin. So there you've got your eastern buttress with Devil's Tooth. And this is the escarpment running along. This is the Tugela Falls would be coming off over here. And you can actually see some of our tracks as we were walking around. And when I say there were literally 5 people in that area on the weekend. 2 other hikers from Johannesburg and the 2 other photographers with myself. So only 5, which was also magical that we had the entire escarpment just to ourselves. This is my stunner, I think. This is the one this is the one I've been dreaming about for years. And as I said, it didn't have a foreground, but that's the shot that I've been wanting, I don't know, since I've been coming to the Drakensberg. And I started walking there in the early 90s. So yeah, this is the one I got excited about when I saw it.
I absolutely love it. I mean, you've got the rays on the left, and that's mirrored by the ravines on the right hand side. Oh man, it is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I was properly chuffed when I took this photograph, and it's one of those few times where you take the photograph and you know you got it in the bag right from the moment you press the shutter. When I used to shoot film, I'd have that occasionally where you just think, wow, that's going to be amazing. And I didn't even need to look at the back of the LCD screen to know this was going to be awesome. So I was properly chuffed with this photograph.
Is this also a panorama?
Nope, single shot. Actually taken with a very, very simple lens as well. I as a matter of preference, I quite like the very cheap 24 to 85 millimeter f3.5 to 4.5 Nikkor lens. It's small, it's light, it's sharp, It's affordable, which also means it's cheap to insure. I've been through several iterations of it because invariably they get destroyed doing something or other, and then you just buy another one. But it's half the weight of the 24 to 70, which is important if you are doing a lot of hiking. It's as sharp, in my opinion, and I'm shooting with a 45 megapixel sensor, so I think it's the sleeper lens of note. And I know that now these new mirrorless lenses are extraordinary; they really are. And I'm sure the new 24 to 70 millimeter f4, both, I think Canon also have one for the RF mount. All these new mirrorless lenses are superior. But at the moment, okay, I can't justify the cost of that. But at the moment, this 24 to 85, it delivers for me, even though it's one of those lenses that everybody passes up. So yeah, that's it. It wasn't anything special. It's no filters. It's just on a tripod with the lens looking out towards this epic light.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of leaves me a little speechless. Just so much about it that I absolutely love, and it is less about the equipment and more about the sort of technical skill to be able to get it being there at the right time, the right place. And as you said, you've practiced for many years to get the shot when the opportunity came up.
Well, I think that's the thing about landscape photography. It's not just about the gear that you've got. And I mean, I'm fortunate that I have very nice equipment. It's not necessarily the newest stuff, but it is still very, very good equipment. But landscape photography comes from getting up early in the morning, usually going out in unfriendly conditions to be able to capture really interesting light. When I've gone on workshops with guests, I usually tell them, if you're feeling uncomfortable and miserable and want to be anywhere but where you are, you're probably in the right place. Because this is where it's happening. This is when you're going to get the photographs. If the conditions are perfect and it's nice and comfortable, your photographs are going to be boring.
Well, it's also the photograph that everyone else is going to have, Yes,
that's exactly it.
If you're out while everyone else is inside, snuggled up, with a glass of wine, you're going to get the shot that they go, oh, that's amazing, because they've never seen it because they've been inside all the time.
That's right, yeah. And I think I might be stepping on toes over here, but I always joke that nature photographers graduate from wildlife photography to landscape photography. So, I used to teach wildlife photography to a company up at Thunder Game Reserve for years, and there is this huge allure and desire to take photographs in the wild. And it's romantic. It really is. I mean, I wanted to do that when I was younger as well. But there comes a point where you suddenly go, everybody's got this photograph. And I think it was Art Wolf actually commented that it's extremely difficult to compete professionally against a world of amateur photographers who are always better equipped and have more money to be in these amazing locations with wildlife than the professionals. So he was always struggling to basically compete on an image level against a phalanx of amateur photographers. But the thing is, you go on a wildlife workshop, and it doesn't matter if you have amazing lenses, amazing instructors, amazing sightings. If there are 6 people on the vehicle, they all get the same photograph.
Right.
Whereas when you go and do landscape photography, even if you just have a simple camera, you can put 6 people in the same space and they will all take different photographs, because it's not just about the technical ability, it's also the interpretation of the landscape itself. One person might go wide, one person might just look at the foreground, one person might concentrate on the distance, one person might concentrate on the sky. Then you still add the different processing that can happen to those photographs. Landscape is just, it has this never-ending array of possibilities for one location. So that's why I say, and it's hard. Every guest we've had who's come on landscape workshops with us in the past, and when I say us, I mean myself and my travel business partner Nick van der Wiel, everybody who comes with us, they always comment on how when they start landscape photography, it's hard, because it's not just capture the moment, it's capture the moment artistically, aesthetically, and technically. It's there's more moving parts to it, which also means that when you are successful and you create the image, so maybe I should move off from this one. When you do create the image and you're excited about it, it's that much more rewarding. So as a pastime as well, I find people who follow landscape photography as a hobby, they tend to also be a lot more, I don't know if happy with their images is the right word, but they certainly seem to get more out of it, because it is so much more of a series of hoops that you've got to jump through to be able to be successful.
Absolutely, it's almost full contact photography. It's physical. You have to walk there. You have to carry your gear. Then you set it up, and you've got to think about what's the crop, what's the angle, et cetera, et cetera. It's not a game vehicle drives up, shoot angle of leopard, et cetera, and drive off.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm in no way saying that wildlife photographers do that sort of thing, but it is very different. If you're shooting wildlife on a walking safari, then then you're in the same sort of territory as a landscape photographer on the top of the berg, because you physically have to get there. It's a very different full contact photography situation.
You become immersed in the subject matter that you're photographing, basically. And I think so. And I'm not trying to put down wildlife photography, because I do still shoot it from time to time. I still teach it, and I enjoy it every single time I go out and I photograph. And as you mentioned just now about like the walking safaris, I've had some phenomenal experiences, like going on foot up to a hyena den in the Tule block, and it's extraordinary being able to experience that and photograph the animals in that way. But it's very different. So, and I've heard professional wildlife photographers who spend day in, day out photographing the same animal saying the same thing, that the general perception of wildlife photography is very, very different to what the reality is for those who are actually doing it as a profession. This is just as we were coming down. I mean, you can actually see how localized that dump of snow was. So although, I mean, you felt it in Joburg and Pretoria, it was cold. But once you got down past 1,600 meters above sea level, the snow was gone. It was already, I mean, this is coming around the neck, going down towards, it's actually just before the neck, coming down towards the Sentinel car park. And I mean, at this height, you're probably at 2,600 meters. So this area down here, it's less than 1,000 meters below us over there. That's probably at about 1.9, maybe 2. So you can see how quickly the snow just melted off. And I mean, I think this is the last image that I have over here, unless I actually pull up some other stuff. But
wow.
This is the view looking out towards the north, towards Clarence, basically. You've got Fortuitous on the right-hand side. Can't really see any of the village there or the town. And that is my two fellow hikers wearing distinctive red bags over there, or rain bags over their backpacks, looking out towards the Drakensberg itself. And it was just the most incredible ending to what an amazing experience. Can't wait for the next one.
Wow, this shot's epic. Again, just speechless at all the sort of the folds and detail and contrast. It's really, really epic. I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a nice sort of finishing piece, just to. Yeah, and again, having some people in there for sort of perspective does help, I must say.
Absolutely. No, that's fantastic.
Yeah, okay, so I don't know if you have any other questions. Well, it's the last one that I've got in this slide presentation. I've got other photos, but I don't think I put them into the presentation itself.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, I don't know if you have any other questions around any of that with the trip and stuff. But again, I just want to impress. It is amazing going up onto the mountain, but regardless of what time of year you go, just either go with somebody who knows the mountain, or you're already familiar and you're prepared to expect the worst, put it that way. All the long time hikers and mountaineers of the Drakensberg, they all have their horror stories of near misses and so on. And I always worry about people who don't take it seriously enough, and they don't have a near miss. It happens to them. As it is, I mean, I've been airlifted off the mountain once before after an accident. So it's if you don't do it, if you don't take it seriously, you can get hurt. And chasing snow, as fun as it is harder when you do it on the top, unaided, and you are literally putting yourself against the elements.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm not sure that that I would. I'd love to go and do it, but I'm not sure that I'm at the right kind of conditioning at the moment to be doing that. Because I mean, it's as you say, you're carrying a backpack with you. You've got your gear, all your food, and you've got to cart this whole thing through knee-high snow.
And as a photographer, it's even worse, because if you take your photography seriously, you're carrying more weight with you. So my camera gear alone weighs, so that's lenses, tripod, filters, which I didn't use this time, batteries, all that kind of stuff. I carry an additional 6 to 7 kilograms of weight.
Sure.
Okay, so now then you add that to your tent. It needs to be a winter tent, and I was carrying. I'm actually going to just quickly jump back to the slide over here where you can see some of the equipment. I was carrying a winter tent on my own, which weighs 4.5 kilograms. Because I had a winter tent, it didn't break. You're carrying you've got to have a nice warm sleeping bag. Mine goes down to -7. Because you're in a tent, it's not, you can actually handle even colder temperatures. You've got your stove, you've got your food, and the food that you take actually needs to give you enough food for an additional day. Because if you do get stuck up on the mountain, you need to be able to eat. So all of that kind of stuff you need to take into consideration if you're going to be climbing on a mountain. Good start, a good way to get the experience is the next time follow the weather forecast as accurately as possible. And when you know that there's going to be a big weather front moving in, book in at a place like Vitsisuk, or go to Sani Pass, or go to the Underberg. There are accessible places that you can get to good snow without the danger. Once you've experienced that and you've said, right, I can do this, I can handle this, and I've got the right equipment, and you've done a couple of summer hikes and other hikes in the Berg when the weather isn't quite as interesting, then go for it. Absolutely. But every year, people get rescued off the top of the mountain because they have not taken it seriously. I mean, a couple of years back, there was a group of German tourists who went off into the middle of a storm in shorts and T-shirts and ended up having to be rescued. And that was the middle of summer. So, yeah, it's a real mountain. It's and people forget that, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not Table Mountain is not a real mountain, comparatively speaking. But you go on.
I don't know. I've heard. Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Sorry, you go on a hike and you start off at Kirstenbosch or wherever it is, and it's a fantastic sunny day. But you get to the top, and all of a sudden it's raining and it's freezing cold, and here you are in shorts and T-shirt. So I can only imagine what it would be like, top of the Berg or a similar type situation when the weather turns, because that can turn dangerous very, very quickly.
Yeah, and you basically expect it to turn. No matter what time of the year you go up, you expect the weather to be its worst. It's worst, even if the forecast says you're going to have fantastic weather. I mean, I made a snowman and had snowball fights on New Year's Day, 2001.
Yeah.
So you do not expect a snowfall in the middle of summer. It was, and that's what the Berg weather is like. It's bizarre at times, and you've got to be prepared to accept and be able to survive that. And again, it sounds melodramatic, particularly if you've never done it. But I think anybody who has gone and done proper serious hiking in the Drakensberg would be sitting there nodding their heads.
So one of the things that I want to do is find out about your workshops and things like that, so that people can, maybe join you, whether it's on the Berg or, some foreign destination, and possibly we can look at creating a Hunters of Light landscape workshop. I know I would love to. Every time I get into a situation, I don't shoot them often enough. It's normally when I'm on holiday, but I get into a situation and you go, there's something here, but I can't So I'd love to, be on a workshop with some experts that I can actually get some good feedback on and create some shots.
I would love to be able to collaborate with Hunters of Light doing something like that. And I mean, we have so many amazing landscape locations in South Africa, and there's actually the majority of landscape photographers and workshop leaders, or they're all clustered down in the Western Cape, and I'm friends with a lot of them, but they're all in the Western Cape. So often when you're in like the interior or even along our coastline in KZN, there's actually a dearth of landscape workshop events that you can go to.
Right.
So yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's collaborate. Let's do something. Make it happen.
Absolutely. No, that sounds cool. So yeah, a bit of housekeeping before we wrap it up. If you are watching this for the first time, fantastic. You're a superhero. Thanks for watching this far. If you are a subscriber, man, you guys are rock stars. Really appreciate it. You help to feed the fires that keep the Hunters of Light going, and we really, really appreciate it. If you've liked it, remember to like it, share it, subscribe, all of those things, because that helps the channel grow. People know about us. We can do more, educate, motivate, and inspire, etc. Emil, it was fantastic talking to you. I loved your images. It's inspired me. I want to go and just go and shoot some landscapes. And for me, that is what these creative showcases are all about. Is being inspired. If I'm inspired, I'm hoping that 2 or 3 more people are inspired, and that's really the whole point of it. So thank you very much. I really appreciate your time and your energy and seeing your pictures.
Sure, thanks for inviting me. It was fun.
Fantastic. Thanks, Emil. Have a good afternoon.
Cheers. You too, man. Cheers.